Hi everybody, Michael Britt here in another episode of the Britt Files, in which I take a look at the latest research on teaching and learning and try to distill that down into a brief video that has usable information for you. Okay, so the two articles we're looking at today, we're going to look at your slides and how we can improve them. Here's a slideshow. I'll use one of my own slideshows as an example. This is on the ready method that I talked about in a previous episode. All right, so this first slide, maybe they're a little bit plain, but that's not too bad. And then you get to a slide like this and you realize there's too much text. Plus, there are some good visuals that I think would convey the information to students. So I go out on the web and I try and find some good stuff. And what happens? I do find good stuff, a lot of good stuff. I find a couple videos and some images and a cartoon and an animation and even some audio. And I'd love to use it all because I'm pretty excited about the topic. But of course I can't. If I try to use it all, then I'm going to wind up with something that like this. This is that same slide, but I've thrown in the cartoon and the images and the video and all that, and now I just don't have room for all that stuff. Plus, I'm dealing with something that Mayer talks a lot about, which is cognitive overload. Right? I've got students' eyes and attention going in a million different directions, and I've really got to focus in order for them to learn. So I'm going to take some of Mayer's ideas and I put them into an acronym which I call MESS, right? Because that's what you want to avoid in your slides. So multimedia principle is simply that Mayer has done a lot of research, and yes, images and media along with text are better than either one alone. Okay, so if that's the case, then what are the three things you want to keep an eye on? And they are the E in MESS, that's extraneous. Right? You want to get rid of stuff that really you might like that cartoon, but it's really not essential to the message that you're trying to get across. The signal principle, which just means you want to direct students' attention, you want to focus them, you want to organize the material so that there's a very logical signaling of where you're going next, and what's the key points. I'll show you some examples in just a second. And finally, spatial contiguity, which just means that if you're going to have different elements on your slide, then make sure that the elements are spaced next to the key point that you want students to learn. So let's take that slide that I have that looked a bit like this, and here's what I would do. So I love the cartoon, but I'm going to get rid of that because it's really not necessary. I do like the video, so I'm going to keep it, but let me just move it down into the corner here. This animation is great, but the problem with the animation is that it plays. It's an animated GIF. It plays continuously. So if I am showing the slide to students, this GIF will keep looping and playing, and as great as it was, it's going to draw their attention over there instead of what I'm on to next. So I'm going to delete that. This background is too distracting and the text isn't really well organized. It does not signal to students where to look and what are the key points I'm trying to make. They all look like key points. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to reorganize it, and here's what I wound up with, something like this. There's still a lot of material here. I've organized the content, and students can more clearly see what the points are that I'm trying to make and which media is connected with which point. That is applying the MESS principle to your slides so that they are not a mess. And somehow that makes sense. All right. Hope this is helpful. See you next time on the Britt Files.